We have to have our own drones, our own missile capabilities, economies in spite of sanctions. They diverted attention from Gaza and the Palestinian cause, which was getting an increasing chorus and sympathy. Quad is one of the five branches of Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps. The attack of Hamas on Israel broke the myth of Israel's deterrence, 3H, the Hamas, the Hezbollah, and the Houthis. War against Hamas was proceeding slowly. Personally, I call it more of a game of shadow boxing, smoke, and mirrors. Recent sparring between Israel and Iran, and I call it sparring. So I owe this blessing to make my dream come true to my Fauji parents, who, in spite of loss of a son at 20 years of age on the borders, always encouraged me.
Welcome to Prachand Talks, a podcast by Irvin Kurana.
Jayan sir, thank you so much for sparing time and being a part of the podcast. It's an immense honor. So like as we know, you are someone who has served in the Indian Army for like 39 long years.
Yeah.
You are an alumnus of NDA. You almost like a part of armored corps as well. Post that, you were honored with PVSM, AVSM, and VSM by the President of India in years like 2016, 17, and 2009. That was not it actually, because you also got Chief of Army Staff Commendation and Army Commander Commendations as well for your distinguished service. Just adding to that, one very important point was that you also got nominated for Aide-de-Camp to the President of India as well. You were part of UN missions as well, UNKPF in Guatemala. So with that, so as we all know, you're a renowned geopolitical and defense analyst who has more than like 150 publications and has his own 5 books.
Yeah.
One thing is also there, so which is like very we can say it's quite nostalgic as well, and in terms of emotions, that your elder brother made the supreme sacrifice for the nation as well, sir.
Yeah.
So, so that like literally, I literally have to again peep into my smaller screen as well to so that I don't miss any of the points, as it's so much, and I'm literally overwhelmed that I'm being able to connect with you. So before we begin, sir, with the questions, which would be around Iran and Israel conflict, as we discussed. So, do you have to say anything to the viewers?
Yeah. Jahint, to you and your viewers, and thank you very much for your kind introduction. I'm indeed humbled. Well, I'm just a simple, proud soldier, I think, who had the good fortune to be alongside some of the bravest of the brave and the finest uh, soldiers and part of the best army in the world, the Indian Army. So I owe this blessing to make my dream come true to my Fauji parents, who, in spite of loss of a son at 20 years of age on the borders, always encouraged me to become a soldier and make my dreams come true. I think I believe it's a blessing of God Almighty also that I wore the uniform and was worthy of serving the nation with pride. I think it's a privilege that God gives to a few, and I think I was privileged to that extent. Uh, Also, to me, the stars on my shoulders are always very nostalgic because I always found them brighter than a million in the sky. And the medals which I wore on my chest, I think were the greatest lifetime possession. But I must say that most humbly and most deeply from my heart, that I owe my success and all my awards to the men that I commanded, and that I had the privilege to lead them in various stages of my life, and who today remain bonded for life with me. So, tall and short, a simple soldier, and a soldier for life, and a proud Indian.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. So, sir, now if we dig in, before I literally put up my first question, we were just listening about Palestine and Israel conflict, and suddenly it came that Israel and Iran are at a conflict again. So my very first question is that Israel initiated a strike on Iran's consulate building in Syria's capital, which is Damascus. It killed Brigadier General Mohammad Reza Zahedi, senior commander of Quds Force of the IRGC, and Deputy General Mohammad Wadi. So, sir, what are the aims and objectives behind Israel and Iran rivalry, and what has it achieved?
Uh, Irvin, I think that the recent sparring between Israel and Iran, and I call it sparring, is a strategic shift in the Middle East dynamics and set a new paradigm between the arch rivals. Uh, Yet, when we witness this transition from proxy war and covert operations to open missile strikes, there were two reflections of it. One was a projection to the world through the social media, through the television. And two was an analysis by defense experts and geopolitical experts who saw the deeper meaning of this game. And personally, I call it more of a game of shadow boxing, smoke, and mirrors. Because it was never about destruction and war escalation, to my mind. And I've written about that also, post the initial strike by Israel on Damascus. But it was more about regional dynamics, geopolitics, and strategic messaging, both to the domestic audience and globally. And it was like a show of muscle, but not the punch actually was very, very restricted. So it was all calibrated, orchestrated to avoid escalation, at the same time claim victory by both sides, because no one actually wanted a full-fledged war. No one at this stage can afford a full-fledged war with all the conflicts that is taking place. Yet there was a strategic messaging and a deterrence construct which was to come up. So when we look at this as the larger picture, let us see what happened just before this. What were the major global hotspots? See, 2022, you are aware, the Russia-Ukraine war took place, isn't it? Then 2023, Hamas cowardly terrorist attack took place on Israel, and the Israeli fierce response, which brought in even global concerns on the humanitarian crisis. Again, we all are aware of that. And 2024, this Iran spat takes place. So somewhere, it's a perfect sequencing which is playing to the destiny of you and the rise of you. Well, that is another debatable matter as such. But there are questions that we need to raise. Is it diverting attention from the future hotspots of Indo-Pacific and new connectivities that were coming up in the Middle East, like the IMMEC, which is the Indo-Middle East Economic Corridor? Or was it the I2A2 economic integration which was taking place? Or was it the concerns of the international north-south traffic corridor which is coming up towards Israel's side, connecting further to Federation republics and to Russia? And also were there some détentes which are taking place in Middle East? So we must remember why 21st century wars are not fought to create peace, but 21st century wars are fought to destroy peace. And there was peace and a global, re-entrenchment and a global bonhomie coming up and alternates to the CPEC, which is coming up. So this background should also never be forgotten at the strategic level when we talk of analysis of the area. Now come down to the two players. Let's look at Israel. Let's see the dynamics of the country at that time. War against Hamas was proceeding slowly, slower than they had imagined, with objectives yet to be achieved in terms of the prisoners being released as such. And the more time it was taking, more the global concerns for the humanitarian crisis that was taking place, both of destruction of properties, loss of innocent lives, and the refugees that were going place. And not only the globe, but even US was under a cloud as regards support to Israel, which is a very, very close strategic ally and a friend in Middle East of US. So situation for Israel was not very, very happy. Simultaneously, the fronts were activated by Iran's what I call proxies 3H, the Hamas, the Hezbollah, and the Houthis. The Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, West Bank, and Houthis in Yemen getting into the Red Sea and heating up the trade routes as such. And Syria's situation and power play was another thing which is taking place. Simultaneously, there were talk of International Court of Justice asking for arrest of the Israeli Prime Minister Bibi and possible US sanctions on an elite battalion of the Israeli Defense Forces for atrocities. So war in Ukraine also was not going well. US elections and economic pressures were there to stop funding Ukraine and Israel. And above that, the attack of Hamas on Israel broke the myth of Israel's deterrence. It hurt the nation. There was a hurt nation pride. And that response was not getting very good. The response globally was not getting good. So what did they have to do? Unlike the past in which they adopted covert operations, non-kinetic means like the cyber or Mossad type of covert assassination operation, Israelis chose to hit an important high visibility target like a consulate's annexes with immunity, disregard, and claiming it. Right? This is actually, even in war, you don't hit, embassies and consulates. But here it was being hit. And they said that it was because Iran's IRGC, the Republic Guard, was operating from this consulate. And they killed the Quds Force commander, like you said. What is Quad? Quad is one of the 5 branches of Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps. And it specializes in unconventional warfare and military intelligence. In this case, Israel said that the Brigadier General who was killed was heading a cell which was using funds coming from Iran and sending it to Lebanon to the Hezbollah for its war against Israel. So therefore, they claimed that it was a moral right, and it was no more a consulate, but a military headquarters where these activities were carried out. Anyway, that was claim and not claim. But what did they achieve? They diverted attention from Gaza and the Palestinian cause, which was getting an increasing chorus and sympathy. They instigated Iran to respond from a covert to an overt means so that the attention knew. They also knew that they would respond. They built up the case for US support and its realignment with focus now on Iran, a common threat to both of them, and therefore, getting support from there. It also sent a domestic message of reinforced deterrence of a strong Israel who is not going to accept things being done, and therefore we are openly going to target, irrespective of Hamas, we're going to target Israel, who's behind all this mischief as far as them. And there was domestic messaging by Bibi, their prime minister, who was under clout as an Iron Man, and that I will safeguard Israel, and I have the political will and the military capability to take care of Israel. So that was the background and the psyche with which Israel did this very, very openly on a very strategically important target, which had legality issues as far as the UN Charter 51, UN Security Charter 51 is concerned. So actually, when you look now at Iran from this perspective, not responding was not an option. It was not an option. And so they put the ownership of initiation on Israel under the Chapter 51 of the United Nations Security Council resolution, and said it was to respond was something in defense. And the nature of retaliation and its open signaling from 1st April to 13th April, when they both politically and military were something like it was orchestrated with adequate warning to Israel and its allies, especially US, UK, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, who were players in the Saudi Arabia in terms of intelligence, US, UK, Jordan, as active players to prepare and stall this. And you're aware that there are these buffer states of Jordan, Syria, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, which separates the two, Israel and Iran, by about 1,700 kilometers. And they have military bases and military strategic ties with the US also, and Jordan is 50 to 60% Jewish, including the Prime Minister, she herself has a Jewish origin. So Iran responded with three aims. One was an external messaging to deter Israel from further action, yet with active calibration and a show of might, but knowing that with 13 days of warning and saying that I'm coming and I'm coming and I'm coming, I'm going to come in strength, that give them preparations to withstand and take counteractions. It also sent a strategic messaging to US that no more is your power what it was 10 years back when you started putting sanctions. So Joe Biden's don't was countered by I will, So, and unlike we don't understand, but Israel is today Iran is today, in spite of the sanctions, the second fastest growing economy at 5.3% growth. People talk of Iran in a economic crisis because sanctions, I'm afraid sanctions don't work like They haven't worked for Russia. So their 5.3% growth, second fastest growing economy, 1.6 billion barrels are being given to China. And you have this Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, Axis and Bonhomme coming up. So there was the external messaging that they had to say. Domestically, uh, you know, they couldn't tell the domestic audience that, look, we were stuck and we are going to stay back, whether it's Khomeini or the prime minister. So it was a domestic messaging to showcase its missile capability and drone capability. Also, at tell the military we are strong and we have a political will too. And militarily, there was a messaging saying that we can still break through your combined shields of the West and penetrate a few missiles like they did at the Nevatim air base in southern Israel. So that further dented the deterrence of this thing. So it also, in a way, there were talks going between Iran and Russia on the Su-35 and the S-400 SAMs. It was taken a back burner a little because of the Russia-Ukraine war and those things being required there. But this sort of attention also helped them as such. So, in spite of this, the Iranians stuck, and then there's a claim that some say 99%, some say 88% stopped, but the matter of fact is 5 or 6, whatever limited this thing, penetrated this multiple shields in spite of 13 days of warning. And that impacted the deterrence of Israel and the combined deterrence of the West in Middle East. So while the Iranians after that announced that it is deemed concluded, it is deemed to be concluded, Bibi also tweeted saying that we intercepted, we repelled, and we won. But again, in this tit-for-tat battle, again, with the deterrence having been broken and such a massive drone strike of over 300, 350 combined drones, missiles, ballistic missiles, again, Israel not responding to such a grave force was again not an option. So it had to do something symbolic. It was constrained by US and the West that don't escalate thing because both of you are not only have military capabilities, but you also have a nuclear brewing capacity, not overly stated, but you are known to have that. So again, they had 3 options, Israel to strike back. They had a kinetic option of a direct strike at nuclear sort of facilities or something like that, military thing. The second option was a non-kinetic one, like cyber attack, but that won't have, sent a message adequately. And third was to go back to Mossad or missile strike in Syria, Lebanon, Iraq. But then that sort of political messaging would have been there. I've written on all these 3 options in my articles also. But the problem was that they had to show to the world, they had to show to the domestic audience that, look, they struck us, now we will strike them. So they hit the airfield at Isfahan, where in proximity lies the uranium enrichment plant. They didn't hit that by intent. With precision aid, they can't. And it was a very sort of a feeble attack. Iranians said there were 3 drones which came and banged in the air. Someone said the missiles landed and 3 missiles, and they claimed that the airfield was damaged. But the thing was, there was lack of ownership, more of messaging, and very, very symbolic at best attack. So Iran also played it down, Israel also played it down, and there was a tacit understanding that we are not going to escalate, both between the two and the pressures from outside. So this tit for tat, from my viewpoint, from a physical ended, and then there was a notion of victory both for Israel and Iran. They did the strategic messaging. They said they did their messaging to the partners, global partners, both US, China, Russia, and globally, the flare-up was in nobody's interest. So I hope and pray, and I keep my fingers crossed that they go back. They can't live in peace, so they go back to proxy and covert action and less of such overt activities, which can escalate in future and create not only a region, because if that region burns, the globe gets impacted and the flare-up will be much wider.
So, thank you so much for such an enlightening view of yours. So, with this, like you also mentioned about Middle East, you mentioned about West. So, there's a question like the Middle East and West are on a perpetual state of conflict. So, what is the strategic importance, geopolitical dynamics, and competing interest, particularly of US, Russia, and China? Also, the fact, sir, what would be the global ramification of this power play, with the fact that will it lead to a nuclear war and escalation in the wider region?
Okay. Arvind, Middle East is a very, very complex issue as such, uh, not just because of its, Shia Sunni religion, uh, oil, economic, energy, connectivity, shipping, uh, the power play by US, China, Russia to gain influence in this area is because strategically the Middle East is extremely important, and therefore this quest for influence, whether it's Syria, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel, Iran, becomes very, very important. And also you see the future lies in the oceans and the trade and economics there. And there you have the Red Sea, the Strait of Hormuz. These are all important. Energy crisis is is uh, is impacting the world. And here you have alternate energy, which is there both in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, even Iran, for that matter of fact, though they are under sanctions for export. So this thing is coming up, and there was always beside the power play, there were blocks which are coming up and rivalries which is coming up and proxies which are at play. But then the reentrenchment took place. Sensibility started to dwell before the Hamas attack took place. And this was in terms of the Abraham Accord, which got Israel, it was orchestrated by US, Israel, along with the other nations, whether it was Oman, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, others, to understand and to work with each other towards economic benefit and integrate as such, because there was always the Jew and the Palestinian cause and the two-nation theory versus Israel's acceptance of only one nation. So there was this Abraham Accord which was starting to bring up peace. Then there was even understanding which was growing up between Saudi Arabia and Iran. It was said to be orchestrated by Oman and partially China to establish diplomatic contact, which had broken up after Saudi Arabia's embassy was mobbed in Tehran. So there was peace overtures taking place there. The India-Middle East Economic Corridor was taking some shape and was talking up. All this was taking shape, but it did not suit many. So this thing came up, and again, Middle East went into a flame. Now, let us look at the world at large, and particularly three nations that you have mentioned. Let us look at US. US has been a pillar of strength for Israel, but at the same time, with Ukraine on its hand, playing the proxy and trying to give support to Europe, it has little appetite to get embroiled in another war in West Asia as such. But Israel and US have a common, enmity towards Iran. And so they join hands, whether it's politically, diplomatically, or militarily, to empower actions against them. Then you have the presidential elections coming up around the corner. And America's economy is also constrained. So all this, if something, they would have got the US Congress would have blocked their arms transfer to Israel, because what was happening in Gaza and all, there's not a lot of debate which is taking place. So in this, while certainly US doesn't want a war, but it also wanted certain actions, low scale, which would suit it without going for a war. That's my understanding. Now, China on the other side is sitting pretty. It's exhausting US resources, attention, away from the Indo-Pacific, towards Ukraine, towards Israel front. And then, the famous Sun Tzu, in his Art of Warfare, said that the first principle is to win without fighting. And they have diverted their attention from Indo-Pacific, Taiwan to Middle East, West Asia, and Ukraine. And at the same time, there is a new axis of power of Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea, which I spoke earlier, overtly warming up, overtly warming up. All three, at least China, Russia, and Iran, their economies, in spite of sanctions, are still doing reasonably well. But having said that, even to China, a turmoil in West Asia beyond, a particular threshold of escalation, beyond that does not suit them also at this stage. Similarly, Russia sees itself in Middle East as a regional security guarantor. You've seen its role. It's played in Syria, Libya, as such. And Iran forms a major influencing factor in its long-term objectives in the Middle East. Sorry. So while Russia's preoccupation on its Ukraine front suggests that it also does not want diversion of resources, but at the same time, it cannot let Iran be looked at weak, because its Iran-Israel relationship has deepened over the years. Economic relationship, military relationship, to mutual benefit. So there is a bonhomie which is growing in that region, yet not to escalate the situation beyond the limit.
So,
The European Union, Britain, France, Mexico, Czech Republic, Denmark, Norway, you have seen Netherlands, have condemned the Iran's attack. The G7 also had condemned it. But what have they done? They'll go in for some additional sanctions to show the world as such. But nothing beyond that. Nothing beyond that. Look at the UN Security Council. I mean, I've always been saying it's a legacy structure of the World War II, which has lost its relevance and lost its, power. So it doesn't walk the talk. So we people's statement that neither world nor the region can afford another war. I mean, a very feeble statement with no teeth. So escalation was in no one's, interest as such. And therefore, globally, there was a call for de-escalation. At the same time, nobody wanted, particularly the three powers, Russia, China, and US, to bring in peace and connectivities in this region because they didn't want to upset the powers of influence, the rivalry for influence, and let it sway in one direction. So that is to my understanding, the geopolitics of Middle East and West Asia.
immensely surprising, sir. And quite surprisingly, if we say, like, in a layman terms, the world is not at peace, actually.
Yeah.
Everywhere there are tensions. So my last question to you, we have talked about war. We have talked about, two sections of the world being at a perpetual conflict. Now, with regards to our beloved country, India. So, sir, how does this Israel-Iran conflict going to impact India and its, national interest? Also, the fact, if we talk about some military lessons with regards to, the operational environment. So, what should be those?
Okay. So this conflict, like all other conflicts, but particularly a conflict in Middle East and in Middle East between Israel and Iran, who have both got good relations with India. This has geopolitical, economic, and military impact and implications on India. Geopolitically, if you look at the ties we have with both countries, Israel today supplies us with both technology, military hardware, particularly radar systems, electronic systems, missiles systems, and many, many other things. It's been doing that, but it's among the top suppliers to the nation and has always withstood us, even in Kargil, to provide us the military wear during our times of crisis. So it is a trusted ally and a trusted strategic partner to India. At the same time, Iran also becomes a very, very important strategic partner. Specifically, when you look at Afghanistan, Central Asian Republic, as such, connectivity through them, through Chahar Port, the North-South trade corridor, which is to come up, and Iran has also been always very, very positive towards India as such. And you have also seen Iran at several forums being on the side of India as such. So we have very good relations, diplomatic relations, economic relations, military relations with them as such. So it's a difficult diplomatic balancing act that we have to do. That's at the same time, you see the corridor connectivity play. Through Israel, I've spoken of the India Middle East Economic Corridor, and through then the I2C2 initiative for economic integration. And on the Iran side, I've spoken of the International North-South Trade Corridor with benefits. And these would all be competing with China's CPEC. Besides the connectivity through Jhabal port as such. So there is a strategic economic connectivity importance which is there in both these sectors. And today, with India's as the fastest growing economy competing to be among the top economies and 10 trillion economy by the end of the decade and 30 trillion by 2047, it's got to keep a multilateral strategic relationships, a multilateral economic relationship, and therefore it looks at both Israel and Iran, it looks at US, it looks at Russia, all being its strategic partners as such. So that's the strategic impact of it. Oil impact, energy. So even though India stopped in 2018 from taking oil from Iran, and most of the Iranian oil is going to China because the sanctions of US, our oil is coming mostly from Russia and Middle East as such. But should this conflict go up, the cost of oil per barrel already shot up, would have shot up much more had it been escalated. So an energy crisis would have not been good for India's economic interest. Inflation of prices would have taken place, markets would have been jittery, interest rates would have gone up, and our economic trajectory would have got impacted. Similarly, trade, cargo through Red Sea, Strait of Hormuz, already is under threat from the Houthis, piracy and other such activities. And any such thing which would have gone up, these would have closed, the airspace would have closed, the trade would have been impacted, the travel would have been impacted. And also, we must not forget that we have a large labor market in the Gulf region. 8 million Indian laborers and expatriate workers are there. We have our people and citizens. We have our people in Iran, which are working. A large number of merchant navy crew are there. They cannot be caught in a crossfire as such. So India in these regions, or Indians in these regions, which are there, are also a factor that we have to build in when we talk at this. Therefore, India was very, very clear. Our Prime Minister and our External Affairs Minister very categorically said that we need to find an amicable solution and escalation should not take place as such. And then there are a lot of lessons, like it was spoke of military lessons as such. Look, I think we need to, from each war, we need to carry lessons which are relevant to our operational, environment, and to the technology which is coming up. We have to be relevant, adaptable, and attuned to that, not fight the future war with yesterday's technologies and yesterday's thought processes, yesterday's system. War has changed. The lexicon of war has completely changed. So there are many lessons. I think one of the lessons which has emerged very categorically is drones, missiles, precision warfare, standoff attacks without escalation into a full-fledged conflict is the flavor of the day. And today, you have your neighbor China with multiple drone and multiple range intercontinental ballistic missiles, hypersonic missiles possibly. And I was just reading this morning that on a bomber plane, they have attached a drone like capability also, which is being shielded. So we have to have our own drones, our own missile capabilities, and more importantly, our anti-missile ballistic missile shield, multi-layered and multi-tiered as such, both exothermic and endothermic, right? So that is important. Then we need to also develop, while Agni 5 MIRC ICBM capability is a very good capability. It targets all over China and it has multiple targeting capability. But we also need to expedite our hypersonic missile capabilities, which is progressing well, but we need to have that for our missile as a deterrence. We have to look at space-based capability, electronic warfare, and cyber capability. These are part of this precision warfare. They are integrated part of it. We can't look at a missile without a terrestrial guidance system, our own indigenous one, and a monitoring system, our ISR system, our surveillance systems. So all these are integrated, and we are fighting a multi-domain warfare. So we have to build on these capabilities. We have to expedite with Russia. We have not got our entire consignment of S-400 systems. The balance we have to expedite as such. Above all, I think the strategic autonomy and Atmanirbharta becomes an essential thing. Because today with global wars, you can't be looking over your shoulders and asking for equipment or emergency procurement. So we have to have self-sufficiency, we have to have self-reliance. And we also have to have, because war is beyond just battlefield, we also have to have economic de-risking. We cannot continue to have an adverse balance of trade, which is going even more adverse with China, while we talk of them as, a potential, not a potential, a threat which is already knocked on our doors, and where situation could escalate on our northern borders anytime. We have seen that. So we have to use all elements of national power, economic, diplomatic, military, hard, soft, and smart power, and yet be prepared for the worst while avoiding a war, And for that, our deterrence capability, our integrated deterrence capability of all elements of national power must be strengthened, including the security of our nuclear assets. We saw nuclear saber rattling between Iran and Israel previously, also in this. But the point that has been driven home is nuclear installations can be or are targets of the future. So security of our nuclear assets, both from state and non-state actors, is a lesson that we must learn from this conflict.
So in a way, like we can say that, AI is also at a big play for this, right?
Yeah, AI is actually, you're absolutely right. I didn't mention it to that extent, besides saying technology, but cloud computing, AI are the future. They are the future, you cannot talk of the future without, artificial intelligence. It's got a major role to play as such.
So, so thank you so much, sir. Like this was it from my end. So do you have anything to add from your end? And would you like to say something to the viewers?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think it's been wonderful interacting with you and through you to your viewers, and been able to express my viewpoint and my analysis on what's a very hot spot which has been created now, more for the television, like I said, than shadow boxing. But beyond this, let me just wish your viewers the very best, and through you send a message to them that live a life worth living, because when you near the end of your journey and you read your life story, it must make good reading, and there must not be any regrets. So be a good human being, be a responsible citizen, and above all, be a soldier for the nation. And to be a soldier of the nation, you don't necessarily have to wear a uniform. You can be a soldier for the nation in many facets, many ways, wherever you are, whether in corporate, whether a doctor, engineer, an entrepreneur, as long as you are contributing to nation building with the ethos that nation above all and not selfish motive, you are a soldier of the nation. And believe me, you will be proud not only of yourself, but you will be remembered by many who see you, and you will create many more such leaders in your path as you travel. So with that, I would say Jai Hind, and thank you very much to you, Irwin, and to all your viewers.
Thank you so much, sir. It was an honor. Thank you.
Thank
Jai
you.
Hind.
Jai Hind.